Hello, friend. Greg here. Did you know that I created some Bangkok walking tours? Use your phone to listen to me yap on a GPS-guided tour that takes you through some of my favorite parts of the city, giving you the skinny on the sights and history that make this place such a shambolic, wonderful mess. Head to voicemap.me and search for Bangkok. On this episode, we talk to Phil Allen, a buddy who gives us some insights from his life living part-time in the northeastern city of Udon Thani.
So if you're like us and feel the occasional need for a break from Bangkok, you'll learn a lot on this episode of the Bangkok Podcast.
Sawadee krap, and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who came to Bangkok in 2001 to spread the gospel of maple syrup in Asia, but the issue was a bit stickier than I thought it would be.
Dude, I'm a maple syrup lover, and I was just thinking about this. Thai people love sweet stuff. They put sugar in everything. They even have like weird, I guess it's high fructose corn syrup stuff that they squeeze on. This is the perfect country for maple syrup.
Man, Krispy Kreme, when it opened, people were lined up around the block. Like, they love really sweet stuff.
Yeah, it's like pure sugar.
Yeah, man, maple syrup needs to make some inroads in there.
All right, we got to work on that. We got to come up with maybe the solution is piling from Hot Thai Kitchen. We'll get her on the show, some maple syrup Thai dishes.
Ooh, that's really good. We're going to start the Bangkok Maple Cast. See how it goes.
That's great. And I'm Ed Knuth, an American who came to Thailand on a one-year teaching contract 24 years ago, fell in love with trying to predict during the rainy season whether the storm is going to start at 5 p.m. or 5:15 p.m., so I never left.
Okay, sometimes 15 minutes makes a big difference in your travel time.
It kills me every year that it's always late afternoon.
Yeah.
It'll be 4 p.m. and blue skies, puffy white clouds. Like, it's beautiful. And then it's like click 5 p.m. and there's a downpour.
Right. You're like, call your wife or girlfriend, honey, yeah. I'm not coming home tonight. I'll be late.
I feel like it only rained between 5 and 7 p.m. during the rainy season.
Wasn't the first day of winter like tomorrow or like next week or something? So.
No, I think officially the rainy season is over. It might be like today or tomorrow. I hope it stops raining. It's just been raining every day, like right at dinner time.
Yeah, it was a big one last night. Maybe the rain gods didn't hear the announcement yet.
That's right. All right, we want to give a big thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get every episode a day early, behind-the-scenes photos of our interviews, a heads up to send questions to upcoming guests, and access to our Discord server to chat with me, Greg, and other listeners around the world. But best of all, patrons also get an unscripted, uncensored bonus episode every week where we riff on current events and Bangkok topics. On this week's bonus show, we chatted a bit about funny animal games, as well as a video game review channel on YouTube that Greg heard his son watching that was accusing a fun kids game of being too woke, and how much fun Greg will have explaining that concept to his son. How bad traffic will suck around Greg's place on New Year's Eve now that Lisa Blackpink will be performing nearby. A thankfully false rumor about JFI shutting down her restaurant. And discussion about someone online who allegedly, but not confirmed, successfully applied for a much vaunted digital nomad visa. To learn how to become a patron and get all this good stuff, plus full access to over 700 bonus and regular back episodes, click the support button at the top of our website.
True that. And don't forget, if you listen to us on Spotify, you can now hear all of our bonus shows there as well. If you're a patron, simply link your Patreon account to hear your Spotify account and add our new feed titled Bangkok Podcast. Badass patrons only to hear the regular and bonus shows in the same place. Yippity-doo-dah.
Nice.
Alrighty then. Well, on this episode, Ed and I are going to take a little mini vacation out of the city. And we all know if you spend too much time in Bangkok, it can get a bit, heavy. And everyone enjoys some time away in the countryside from time to time, and you can't get more countryside than Isaan, Thailand's huge northeastern section.
Correct.
So on this episode, we are joined by our buddy Phil Allen, a Canadian, yay, who splits his time between Bangkok and the northern city of Udon Thani. Now, for those who don't know Thai geography, Udon is about 50 kilometers from the Laotian border, so it's in deep, deep Isaan. And to be honest, we need to pay that area a little bit more attention. So in the first of an occasional series, Phil sits down with Ed to discuss his life in Udon Thani, how it's a lot more developed and interesting than we might think it is, and why us city slickers in Bangkok should work a little bit harder to get to know the wonderful Isaan region of Thailand. So here's Ed's chat with our buddy Phil Allen.
So I'm here with a relatively old friend of the podcast, Phil Allen. Phil, welcome to the Bangkok podcast.
Thank you.
Phil is, it's funny, in my head, Phil, I think of you as a newbie, but you're not actually a newbie. So how long have you been in Thailand now?
I've been in Thailand now 5 years.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I remember, after I was here for maybe a year, I started thinking of myself as like a senior dude. And I'm like, I've been here a year. You know what I mean? But then I met you, since I've been here 24 years and I met you 5 years ago, I'm like, oh yeah, Phil, like the new guy.
Yeah. It's time flies, right?
It really does. So I've heard this story before, but our listeners obviously haven't. So you have a little bit of a unique background. So can you tell the listeners how you came to Thailand in the first place?
So, a little bit about my career background. I'm an economist, but I work mainly in fintech, and I do take some brief interludes working in economics. I was applying to jobs all around the world after I left Canada 12 years ago. And I was picking jobs not based on location, just based on the jobs themselves. Wound up with a job offer at the end of 2019 in Bangkok. I had no prior interest in coming to Thailand at all and not much prior knowledge, but the job checked out and I decided to move. And I arrived here soon after.
Very cool. And you somehow connected to the podcast fairly quickly or kind of our scene. So why don't you tell everyone like how you ended up meeting me and Greg?
I was looking for a cycling group, and someone online, I don't remember where, put me in touch with Greg, and I joined some of the rides, and I believe you were at one of the earlier ones, and I haven't done a whole lot of cycling since then. My bike is got a thick layer of dust on it.
You moved on to motorbikes, basically.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. The rest is history. Phil and I hit it off, and I feel like you've adapted really quickly. Because we were, you were a newbie at that point, and we started hanging out, and I didn't see you like that much, but 6 months, a year later, I feel like you kind of adapted well. Because what was did you find it an easy transition?
Well, normally when I'd move to other countries, I had it easy because I'd be working in companies that had a lot of expats, and in Bangkok was no exception. But I came just before COVID, and the whole experience really shook me because I was here without knowing anybody and facing a lockdown, which is something that I think most of us haven't faced before. And Thailand had this period of about 6 months where the borders were closed, but internally everything was open. And I didn't want to go through one of those lonely lockdown periods again. So I went to every possible meetup group, every Facebook event, every networking event. I joined the Chamber of Commerce. I was forcing myself to go out every day, and just so I could build my social life. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that is so weird to have to adapt to a country in the middle of a weird situation. So it's not like, moving to Japan. It's like you're in a new place, and then there's a pandemic, which happens once every 100 years.
Right. Yeah, it was indeed a really strange time. At that time, I was living in a very small apartment near my office, which was then closed due to COVID, and I was kind of driving myself crazy with the whole work from home situation and not knowing anybody. And I was scrambling, figuring out what I was going to do. I was thinking, should I stay in Bangkok? Should I just go to some distant island somewhere and work from there? And then I was thinking, no, that will just be even more lonely. And then I ended up just canceling my contract and renting Airbnbs all around Bangkok and testing out different neighborhoods. At that time, I didn't even know what something as simple as Sukhumvit was. And so I was living in places like Wutakat and
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I commend you on your. To me, you sound like pretty brave. Like you were pretty proactive about making contacts, living in different neighborhoods. Greg and I have talked about many times how I plopped down on Sukhumvit Soi 1, and I think I was there 5 years. So my first 5 years here, I lived in one place.
Right. Well, I mean, I think I would have done something similar had it not been for that unusual situation we were in. Yeah. So, it just kind of made me scrambling for a solution, and I was kind of just, shooting bullets, seeing what sticks, and learning bit by bit in the process.
Right. Well, Phil actually has Bangkok stories, which I'm sure are good, but we invited him on the podcast because fairly early in his Thailand journey, he started exploring outside of Bangkok, in particular the Isaan region. And we, of course, have a lot of listeners up in Isaan, and we have had guests living up there. But I got to be honest, I feel like we've maybe been a little bit negligent, because the whole Isaan world is actually a fairly big part of the expat experience. Like after Bangkok, there's probably the most expats up in Isaan. And we've had a couple guests, but not that many. And so when, over the last year, especially when you have been talking more about it and you've been spending more time up there and you're renting a house up there, I just thought it'd be good to bring you on to talk about the Isaan experience.
Well, it's a personal passion of mine. So really happy to discuss it.
What do you mean? What do you mean by personal passion? Why do you say that?
Well, I think there's a certain evocative or emotional sense that you get in the region. There's a certain kind of energy that's hard to describe, and I'm sure some of your listeners who are living up there will know exactly what I mean. But without spending time up there, it's difficult to understand because there isn't much in the way of the typical Thai tourist attractions up there. I mean, there are some, but it's relatively flat. It's also quite sparse. It's the largest region of Thailand. It's kind of difficult to travel without a vehicle. The distances are long. The landscapes can be repetitive, and so it's something more cultural or something a little more intangible that exists up there. But people who go, they notice it almost immediately.
It's funny what you described is exactly my experience. In that I've been to Isaan, I would say many times. I mean, maybe not that many because I've been in Thailand so long, but probably 10, 12 times I've been to Isaan. I've driven through it, but the way you described it was exactly correct. It was, it's like rice fields, and then small town, and then rice fields, and then a small town that looks exactly like the last small town.
Right.
Like the same restaurants, the same like little plastic chairs. It's like, so I wouldn't say I disliked it. I mean, it has there's like a natural beauty to it, but I was surprised, and I sometimes tease my students about this. Like I was surprised how empty it felt. Like I would just drive, and it reminded me of driving through the Mountain West in the U.S. Like if you take because I'm from the Midwest, and you can there's a northern route to get to California where you can go through like North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, Wyoming, and you drive for like 2 hours and you see like 5 cars.
Right.
If you're driving through like the Mountain West. And that's what I felt about Isan. Like, of course, you go into a city and you see people. But to me, it had like an empty feeling. Am I wrong?
Well, the thing is, the cities. There are multiple major cities in Isan. Korat is kind of the gateway to Isan, or at least that's what they refer to it as. I'd say Korat is a bit of an exception. It doesn't feel as much like Isan. But once you're in Konkan, Udon Thani, Ubon Ratchathani, Buriram, then you get a little more liveliness. In fact, significantly more, and that's something that I'd like to get into a bit later. But
Yeah.
yeah,
It's funny. I have friends who've kind of gone up there to kind of party and explore, but I've basically completely missed that. So I've mostly driven through either for some work related thing or visiting my ex-wife's family. So I've never actually hung out. Like, so I know I've heard stories about the nightlife. I've just basically missed it, and it's not right. Greg wanted me to mention that we are going to come visit you. So he said I have to mention this on the show. We're going to knock on your door, dude.
please do, please do. And you mentioned the nightlife. I think that's something really remarkable and noticeable about the place, because you typically associate Thai nightlife with tourist areas. You would think, Bangkok in particular, maybe Pattaya, Phuket, even perhaps to some extent Chiang Mai, although it
Sure.
is quieter. But Isan, it's like a purely local nightlife that exists there, but it is more lively, more crowded, and more rambunctious than anywhere else in the country. I mean, and it's
I've heard
not a
this.
tourist place.
Yeah, no, I've totally heard this, and I mean, this is one of the many reasons I got to get up there. No, I mean it's funny because everyone knows like the Thai reputation. Thai people are very nice and sweet and friendly, and Thai people definitely like to have fun. Like I think they're fun people. But it's funny in Bangkok, like most of the kind of normal, like middle class Thai people I know, they're not like big partiers. They're not going out every night. In my experience, they're actually not super social. Like they're kind of working or going to school, and my students go to school and go home like they're in high school. But I've heard this about Isan people that they go out at night, like almost every night. Like this is what I've heard.
That's right. I mean, that's been my experience, especially in the major towns. Any night of the week, people are out all night, and
Right.
it that was part of the mystery of it for me. What kept me going up there? I'm just wondering, how are people managing to both afford and wake up in the morning
Right.
manage this? They live very lively existences. Yeah.
Well, let's just back up a little bit. So I made a little joke before, but I know that fairly early on you bought a motorbike. So were motorbikes your gateway to Isan? Did you just start driving around, or how did you get out of Bangkok in the first place?
Right. So again, it was during that kind of 6-month period where everything was open domestically, but there were no foreigners in here. And I had recently made a friend who was big into motorcycling, and he wanted to teach me and one of his other friends how to ride. And we were planning to do this in a small town where it would be easy to learn and there would be little traffic. And we were just looking at a map, and he recognized Buriram on the map, and he heard about it through the football club. And because they have the famous team from Buriram,
Sure.
and the stadium there. And we thought, at that time I didn't even know what Isaan was. I didn't realize it was a separate region. It was very early on in my days in Thailand, and the three of us decided to head up there, take some lessons, try to get our licenses, and spend some time riding
Crazy.
around. Yeah.
I'm to be honest, I'm just straight up jealous. Like this is the kind of thing that over the years I've always thought that I should do, and then I've just never done it. But so I commend you. So you actually so you were going there just for a few days at a time. Was that the initial thing?
We were gonna go for a handful of days. I don't remember how long we ended up staying exactly. This was back in 2020, I guess. And yeah, the plan was to rent a few bikes, ride around, go to a driving school, get our licenses, go to the Department of Land Transport, get
Uh,
everything sorted, and yeah, that was just kind of a vague plan that we had, and we figured we would give it a try.
Now, obviously, it worked out. You liked it, but I'm curious. What was your first impression? Even though I do wish I had done this, I have gotten addicted to Bangkok, or I just have my haunts, and I don't think I could find those exact things up there. Like I just couldn't. You know what I mean? So, were you when you first got there? Were you bored, or was it cool like straight away?
So first of all, it was during the daytime, it seemed reasonably quiet, which is exactly what we were looking for to practice our driving.
Sure,
And
sure.
we went to a motorcycle rental shop. And so this was our first like real encounter talking to local people in Isaan. Everybody there is incredibly friendly and much more outgoing compared to other parts of Thailand. Like people will approach you, people want to talk.
Interesting.
They
Interesting.
seem much more bold and more engaging and very, very sincere. And
Interesting.
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. I want to get your take on this. It sounds like Greg and I have talked about this before, and we've come up with this kind of saying that Thai people are nice, but they're not necessarily friendly. And but
Right.
but you're saying up there they're actually kind of friendly and engaging.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I have countless examples of this. I mean, I've been invited to people's homes for dinner who I just met in the street. I've been
Wow.
offered rides. I've been,
Wow. That's
it's
not a okay. That dinner thing. That dinner thing is not a Thai thing, or a Bangkok Thai thing. I should say. Correct myself. It's not a Bangkok Thai thing. I mean, I actually have been invited to people's houses, but I think I was here something like 12 years. Actually, maybe not that long. I think it was more like 8 or 9 before one of my students invited me to meet his family.
Mhm.
And the reason it stuck in my head is that I had gone to Vietnam to teach a short course for 2 weeks, and I had met a Vietnamese woman through like my yoga class. And when I met her in Ho Chi Minh, she immediately invited me to her house, and it was so weird. Like I'm like, I've been in Thailand at that time. I was in Thailand for 6 or 7 years, and I'd never been invited to a Thai person's house.
Yeah, in Isan it seems to be more standard. Yeah, I've got plenty of invites up there in almost every major province. People just seem very just happy to talk and happy to engage.
Well, I love this type of information because obviously Thailand is regional. You have central Thailand, you have northern Thailand, northeastern, and southern, and we all know there's different dialects, but the culture is also different. Is basically what you're saying.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's noticeable between all the major regions, between Isan and the north, and central Thailand and the south.
So you've been to all of them basically.
Yeah, less of the south compared to the others, but yeah, there's definitely a perceptible difference between all of them, and sometimes it can be quite dramatic.
So when you first went to Buriram, you were mostly just worried about biking and stuff. Did you start checking out nightlife right away? Like how did you start doing that?
Well, just going back to when we even just rented the motorcycles, the woman who owned the rental shop, she also owned several restaurants in town, and she had some billboard that she was proud to show us with her picture
Right.
on it, and and she wanted to take us around. Help us get our licenses sorted. Help us take us to a driving school. She
Wow.
had a lot of connections, and she was not doing this. She refused to take any extra commission for any of these things. She was just
Wow.
really
Wow.
glad to take us around to help. And so that was kind of just our first impression arriving in Buriram. Uh, the in terms of the nightlife and entertainment, uh, in Buriram in particular, that's very concentrated in one district downtown, where they have quite a few Isaan style pubs playing molam music, the local Isaan music.
Sure.
And so that was easy to find. During the day, it looked like a bit of a ghost town in that area, as you might expect from a nightlife district. But once evening rolls around, it was incredible how busy it gets. I suspect that people from all the neighboring towns and villages outside of Buriram kind of just feed into it on
Right.
in the evenings and weekends.
So you kind of checked it out straight away, and obviously it turned you on, or you were there was a lot of energy there.
Oh, it was something like I've never seen before. We went to a place that I now know to be a chain of molam dance halls called Tawandang. Now,
Oh, sure.
the Tawandang in Isaan is a different company than the Tawandang in Bangkok.
Right.
And also, there are a lot of, I think that name, I have a feeling it can't be trademarked because there are a lot of knockoff Tawandangs that don't belong to either of those
Oh, I see. Okay.
brand umbrellas around. So,
Okay.
but yeah, we ended up at one of those in Buriram, and they put on quite a show, starting with very traditional sort of dancing in regional dress and regional costume, and then as the night progresses, it becomes more wild and more crazy and more crowded. And
Oh, really?
it was
Now, is it? I've seen videos. So does it kind of get to a point where it's kind of like sexy girl dancing, like not quite go-go dancing, but it becomes a little bit more risque, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. That seems to change around 10 p.m. The tone of the music changes.
Oh, really?
The crowd starts to become a little bit more intoxicated. People are more talkative. The stage performance becomes more suggestive. And,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Now, let me. We have to confront the language question. So, obviously, being new to Thailand, your Thai wasn't very good, and So up there, are you communicating in Central Thai in English mostly, or have you picked up some Pasta Isan? How do you
So
communicate?
So at that time, of course, since I was a new arrival, it was almost entirely in English. But now I usually just make do with Thai, Central Thai. Pasa Isan is a whole other thing where it's another learning curve to go through. I've picked up a little bit, but I think if someone were to spend a lot more time up there, which I intend to continue doing, I'll have to start learning more Isaan. Not have to, because everyone speaks Thai, but it would definitely help the integration process.
Now, how's the average English up there? I feel like by stereotype, it seems like it would have to be worse than Bangkok. But is that true?
I'm not sure if it is. I mean, again, it depends in Bangkok who your friends are and who your colleagues are. In a work context, everyone in Bangkok seems to speak English. I assume that might be the same in Isan as well. I don't notice a huge difference.
Interesting.
There are quite a few universities up there as well, and I think that
Sure.
the younger generation is speaking at least some English.
So you weren't. That's interesting. So you didn't hit a wall of all of a sudden you couldn't use English. You never hit a wall like that.
No, not really, and I think the friendliness really helps, and I think that's actually the bigger factor. I mean, communication can become easier even without verbal language when everyone is just willing to try to engage with you.
Sure, absolutely. So you did not jump and just move to Isan, but you were working out of Bangkok, and then you just started taking trips up there, weekends. Is that what the transition was?
Yeah, I think that trip to Buriram planted a seed in my head that I didn't realize at the time, but it kind of grew my curiosity about the region. So I started by checking out the major cities, Khon Kaen and Udon Thani and
Right.
Ubon Ratchathani. And so I kind of just wanted to visit those places. And then I realized that there might be some commercial opportunities up there as well. It's quite fast growing compared to the rest of Thailand. I don't mean in terms of population, although Khon Kaen I heard is the fastest growing city in Thailand.
Oh, hmm.
But since it had a lower starting point in terms of development, it was always more of a backwater. It was more abandoned by the central government economically. That tide has shifted, and now Isaan is catching up fast, and it's kind of
Interesting.
undergoing a renaissance.
Now, are you referring to things like construction projects, like hotels, office buildings, that kind of thing? Is it just becoming more modern? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, the pace of development in the major towns has picked up pace quite dramatically. They're building a second central mall in Khon Kaen. The other major towns already have them. They're even talking about a light rail system right now in Khon Kaen.
Oh, wow.
I don't know how realistic it is, but there's some very interesting articles about this. Yeah, the pace
Well,
of
I've been to.
yeah.
Sorry, I've been to Ubon many times, probably 6 or 7 times, and I remember the first time I went to Ubon. I thought it was going to be a village, but if you're in downtown Ubon, it's quite modern. Like there's cool coffee shops, and there's not big office towers, but it's actually pretty clean and modern.
That's right. Yeah, I think you'll find the same in all the major Isan cities. Something interesting of note is that the Michelin Guide, which used to only cover Bangkok, Chiang Mai, and Phuket, started covering Isan for the first time in 2023.
Oh,
And
oh, I didn't, I
yes,
didn't know that. Mm.
so actually, it's a kind of a good starting point if you're going in there without knowledge of where to eat. There's a lot of low cost options in there that are showing you some very high quality food for a very very reasonable price compared to Bangkok, and that's is something worthwhile noting because it kind of shows how Isan is now on the map. It's now on people's radar a little bit more.
For sure. I mean, everyone. It's funny. Everyone kind of knows about it. There's a ton of Isan people in Bangkok, of course. Uh, and of course, like I said before, we have plenty of listeners who live out there. But actually, among most Farangs, it's actually not that many go there. I mean, considering how many people know about it, everyone knows like, oh, Isan, yeah, sure, but not that many actually venture out there. And in my case, mostly I've driven through there, or again, it was through my ex-wife, and I've never really explored it. And I think I'm kind of typical. Like there's, so I kind of know about it, but just never put the time in. So let's jump to your current location, because you have eventually ended up kind of planning yourself in Udon Thani, that's way northeast.
Yeah, that's up towards the border with Laos. The next stop would be Nong Khai, and then after that, it's the border.
So that's like that's real Isan up there.
Actually, I don't know because Isan has influences from both the Lao side and the Cambodian side,
Oh, true that.
and it's sort of a mix of the two combined with a good dose of the rest of Thailand, and
Sure.
I think that's kind of what makes it unique. It's got elements of all of them. I think the center of Isan, like Khon Kaen, might be the most, might be the most Isan
Oh,
place because
interesting.
it's smack in the
That's a
middle.
good point. Oh, that's a good point. I was surprised when I spent time in Ubon, and I was at my ex mother-in-law's village. There were a lot of Cambodian speakers there. So like Ubon is much closer to Cambodia, and there's, like you said, basically exactly like what you said. It's Isan, of course, but it doesn't have as much of the Lao influence.
Right, right, and that's another interesting thing in some provinces, mainly Buriram and Surin, and to some extent, I think Sisaket. There's a lot more Cambodian influence. and there's quite a few people there who are ethnically Khmer and still retain the Khmer language as well.
Sure.
And even some of the Isaan music in those parts is sung in the Khmer language. So it's
Interesting.
yeah, Isaan. It's an interesting mix.
No doubt, no doubt. So, how did you end up in Udon?
So a part of it was practicality. So I'm still working in Bangkok, and I have to be in Bangkok a few days a week, and I'm trying to spend the remainder of my time in Udon. There's quite a few provinces in Isaan that I really like, but they're just harder to access. So I love Sakonnakhon. I think that's like a real hidden gem. I think it's an incredible province and an incredible town.
I don't know anything about it.
I'll share a few details on it in a moment. But the thing about Udon is that it's close to everything that I like. It's bordering Sakonnakhon. It's like an hour and a half from Khon Kaen. It's near the border with Laos, so if you want to go to Vientiane, it's easy to do. And the other thing is I would say, I mean, I don't have any numbers on this, but just by impression, I think it's the place with the highest number of expats, and it has a huge amount of international food available there. There's so much
cool.
in the way of Italian and French restaurants, and you can.
Oh, crazy!
And the other thing is the medical care there. I mean, I hope not to have to use it, but in case I do, it's I from what I heard, it's the place where top Lao officials go for medical treatment.
Oh, I see. So they want to get over so essentially what you're saying is kind of over the border in Thailand. There's better medical care than you would expect because maybe Laotians come over or Laotians with money.
Right. That's what I've heard, and there's even a branch of Bangkok Hospital up there. There's a few other top end hospitals in Udon.
And you're close to there.
Yeah, I mean that's all in the center, and that's all in the center of Udon, and
gotcha.
I think it's a very livable city as well. It's got everything you want in terms of amenities. It's connected well by rail. You can take a sleeper train there from Bangkok.
Nice.
It's got a big airport with plenty of flights. The road there is there's a major highway connecting it, so it's like one of the better connected places.
Now, are you usually flying back and forth, driving, taking the train? What's your MO?
I like to take the sleeper train when I can, but if the flight is cheap, then I'll fly.
Gotcha. And then in Udon, you're still motorbiking around. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, I've got a couple of motorbikes in the house in Udon.
Nice. So let's talk a little bit. So in Udon, do you have the same kind of similar nightlife as you were talking about earlier? Like, so it's very vibrant at night.
Oh, sure. Definitely. I'd say a lot less so, though, compared to Buriram and Khon Kaen. Khon Kaen is an exception in a way because it's a student city. Khon Kaen has one of the top 5 ranked universities in Thailand, KKU.
Definitely.
And so that kind of makes it exceptional in terms of nightlife. And Buriram is kind of its own thing, where it's a very entertainment-focused city. It has the MotoGP there. It has the football stadium. Udon is more balanced. I'd say that's where all the best food, in my personal opinion, is. And it's the traffic is less. The main highway that runs through Isaan to Lao, it kind of cuts Khon Kaen in half in a way, the student half and the rest of the city. Whereas in Udon, it kind of goes around the perimeter of the city, so you don't have to drive across the big highway to access the downtown.
Gotcha. So what so you're spending at least a few days a week up there. Like, what do you do? Like, is it very chill in the daytime? Like if you want to, I just can't picture it really. Like, is there a gym? Do you go work out? So, like, are you eating at night? Are you hanging out at Starbucks, or are you eating Thai food? What are you doing?
Well, I've still been forming my routine in Udon. I spent about 9 months doing the same thing in Khon Kaen. I had a deal with a hotel there where I would park my motorbike there, and I would just stay there every time. And then
Oh, nice.
I later decided to make the move to Udon and get the house. But yeah, I would say it's pretty relaxing. I mean, I go there to get away from the bustle of Bangkok, which I love so much. But sometimes you want that get
You need
away
an
from
escape.
the city. Yeah,
Absolutely,
exactly.
absolutely.
And so yeah, just riding the bike around and trying new places to eat because it's very affordable up there compared to Bangkok. You can try things that might have been out of your range
Right.
in Bangkok and Udon. It's all accessible. There's lots of trips to do, day trips to.
Now, up there, have you connected more with local Thai people or with expats? So, I know you're kind of still building your scene up there, but is do you have people to hang out with?
Not yet. I've been meeting my neighbors recently. As you know, it's funny. Just another example of the friendliness of the place. Coming home there just a couple of days ago, it was at night, and I was kind of fumbling with my lock, and one of my neighbors walked by and introduced himself and
Oh, really?
brought out a flashlight so I could see what I
Oh,
was
nice.
doing. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that's funny.
yeah.
Nice.
But yeah,
But
locals so far.
okay. Now, so the nightlife is there. Is that something? I know you're a little bit into the music. You're a little bit into Malam, right? Is that just like when you're up there? Are you just kind of planning and checking it out like every night, or how often do you go?
For me, it's more of just a Friday night sort of thing or once a week sort of thing. I love Molam, but those kinds of venues end up being like an all night all night affair that are you
Oh,
know
really? What do you honestly? What do you mean by all night? Like, I mean, are you talking about?
4 in the morning.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
yeah.
So they don't close. There's no closing time at like 1 a.m. We got to close. It's not like that.
It seems pretty lax for that. Unfortunately, they moved the location of my favorite place in Udon. They moved it a little outside the city
Oh,
apparently because of noise complaints.
oh,
So,
really?
yeah.
So they're playing music late.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And is it just are people just sitting around drinking, or are people dancing?
Oh, people are dancing and they're trying to they're trying to just socialize, and it's probably those Molam places are probably about the most social places you can find in Thailand. Uh, People are just looking to meet others
Nice. We got
and
to
just
okay. We
chat.
got to do this. Greg and I are we're gonna crash one of these Malam places. We're gonna do it for sure. So I know obviously I know what Malam is, so but I don't even know how people dance to Malam. Like, does it look like Thai dancing, or does it just look like normal like bar
It's
dancing?
no, it's Thai. They have their own local dance that they do, but
Uh,
it's compatible with a Western form, and the people there
Compatible.
will, when they see you're a foreigner, they'll show you how to how to do it.
And are you participating after a few drinks? Are you are
Oh,
you getting
definitely,
up? And,
definitely.
oh, really?
Yeah, yeah,
I don't, part of me wants to see that, but part of me doesn't really want to see that. you know,
yeah.
I mean, I always fear, because I don't like to dance and can't dance, but then of course, like if I drink enough, someone will pull me up. I'll do it, and I just fear the video. Like I just fear. I'm just parent because I'm the old white guy who can't dance. But then I get into it, and then like that. I don't want to see the video. You know what I mean?
It's the same situation for me. I don't go there with the intention of dancing, but usually
Right.
after a certain hour, people will come to your table and try to get you to
Go like
stand up.
grab you, pull you up. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's great. That's great. How do you feel up there, like out in the country? Like I remember when I was up there, I was in Ubon and a village outside of Ubon, and in general, I felt fine. But there is something a little bit weird about being in the country. Like a couple times, I was uh, like on a motorbike on like a country road at night, and I would kind of get this feeling like, oh shit, like I'm off the beaten path. Like there's no police. There's it might be 10 miles until there's police. You get that kind of edge of wilderness feeling. Like I guess you're in Udon. So like, how do you feel? Like, do you feel safe up there?
Oh, I feel extremely safe up there. I haven't seen a whole lot that would indicate it being unsafe. Although um, this is what I'm talking about in terms of violent crimes or thefts. It
Right.
seems very low rates of that. The dangers come more with the drunk driving,
Oh, right.
and
Sure.
I stopped riding motorbikes. On the big roads at night. I mean, I'll go around the city, but I won't. There was a couple times where I was going between provinces at night, and I wouldn't repeat it. A lot
It's kind
of
of scary. It's kind of scary on those at night on those like long roads.
oh sure,
Uh,
yeah, big roads with 18-wheeler trucks and poor visibility, poor lighting. I had
yeah,
a
and then Thai guys like to drink.
Exactly, yeah. So I wouldn't. So that's the one area where I wouldn't feel entirely safe. I've ridden at night between Buriram and Surin, and also between Kon Ken and Mahasarakam, and between Kon Ken and Kalasin at night. And I think that's. I'm not going to be doing that anymore.
You're done.
I had some close calls. So
Oh shit. Oh
yeah.
shit. Yeah, no. Yeah, I mean, listeners, if you are regular listeners, you know that Thailand in general is very bad for road safety. And, I'm guessing statistically Bangkok's worse just because of the amount of traffic. But man, out in Isaan, you just get people doing crazy things or going super fast on those like country roads. You get people like screaming on those country roads.
That's right. Yeah, yeah, it's something I wouldn't recommend to do is the night driving, especially on a motorcycle. I mean, it's fine in the town. I think. I mean, the towns have limited traffic. It's mostly motorcycle traffic at night, but I wouldn't do some long distance riding at night, especially with
Gotcha.
the drunk driving there. I think is probably higher than
Let's
other
talk.
parts.
Let's talk a little bit about your house because you're renting a house now, and I've seen pictures of it. And why don't you describe it and then like tell us the rent because the rent is pretty shocking. But so can you just describe the place? It's actually pretty big, huh?
Yeah, it's I don't know what it is in square meters, but it's impressively large for the price. It's just on the it's I'd say it's within the city center, but it's kind of on the outer side of the city center, and it takes me about 5 minutes to get into the actual kind of
That's nothing.
downtown.
Yeah, that's
But
nothing. And is it a two stories?
it's 2 stories, 2 bedrooms. It's got really high ceilings, a huge kitchen, a huge driveway, lots of parking space, and yeah, location is good, everything is good, and it's 7,000 baht per
No.
month.
When you told me it was 7,000, I'm just like, dear Lord. I mean, if you I think there's great deals in Bangkok, and if you're out of the city center, you can get a house that's not crazy. When my old house, I think I paid 23 and felt like it was a steal. Where I was, but man, seven, that's insane. That's insane.
And it's not the only one. The funny thing is that if you were to push the budget to about 10,000, you could get something uh, that I would describe as almost lavish.
Oh wow, a sweet pad for 10,000.
That's right. I couldn't. I mean, it was since I'm renting a place already in the center of Bangkok. It was,
Right,
just having a second place in general was already an expense that's
right,
hard
right.
to justify. But yeah, if you were
And
willing to go a little further, you could.
and I'm guessing all the amenities are fine. Like you don't suffer like brownouts and power outages, or internet's all right. Everything's fine, right?
Everything is fine. I'd say the level of amenities is not a whole lot different than in Bangkok. I can get Grab deliveries the same as I would
Oh,
in
nice.
Bangkok. Everything is the same. It's just the scale is a little smaller. The traffic is better.
Right.
Yeah.
So basically, what you're saying, I mean, basically, high quality food that's cheaper, um, interesting Thai version of nightlife. So maybe not Farang style nightlife, not like big sports bars, not that kind of thing.
Well,
But
actually,
is there a sport? Is there like a? Can you watch American football there? Like, what's it like?
I think you could. I mean,
Oh,
they have a district in Udon that's it's a little bit like a soy cowboy, but it's got
oh,
it's more of a mix of regular bars and restaurants as well, and more.
so it's kind of like the Farang section or something.
Yeah, like the Farang section, and they have some Irish pubs.
Oh, nice. Oh,
Yeah, it's mostly Farangs in that area.
apologies, folks. We had a minor technical problem and lost about the last 5 minutes of our interview, but not much of it. I just wanted to thank Phil for coming on the show, and hopefully he'll be able to come back and give us an update on his life in Isaan.
Man, that was awesome, and it just confirms, our buddy Ash also lives up there, and he lives close to where Phil
Yep.
is. And I have
Yep.
been promising Ash for years that I will come and visit him. I promise that I'm going to make good on. I swear. But it just seems like just a great, interesting, cool part of Thailand that just for some reason is sort of like the redheaded stepchild of of the country.
Well, it's like Phil and I talked about it. It's all foreigners know about Isaan, and we might go through it, but
Right.
not as many as you would think actually take time to spend time there. I mean, obviously we have a bunch of listeners that are in Isaan, of course,
Right.
but it should be further up on the list for all visitors.
Totally.
And what I really enjoyed in that interview was the way that Isaan culture is not necessarily the same as Bangkok, and I think sometimes I forget that. It's like I know that Thailand has different regions, and southern culture is different and northern culture, but because I'm just in Bangkok all the time, I just forget.
Right.
That Thailand is not the same everywhere, and that it's not just usually I'm thinking about language, but he made the point in the interview that it's really culturally different. And we joke all the time. We say we live in Bangkok, not in Thailand, but I still forget that, and I forget that, hey, just a few hours away, it's not like visiting another country, but it's not culturally the same.
Yeah. And it's funny because we think of Bangkok as such this massive melting pot with all these different cultures from all around the world. And it is. But Isaan is also kind of a melting pot too. You got heavy influence of Laotian culture, and there's a lot of
Cambodian culture, and then there's the Thai. It's really, this came up in the interview, that depending on where you are, it's really like Thai, Laotian, Cambodian, and it's really it ends up being its own thing.
Right. Yeah.
It's Isaan culture, and it's not the same as Bangkok.
Right. And one thing that made me jealous is after you were done, Phil mentioned his Instagram account, which is New Physiocracy, and we'll have a link to that in our show notes. But I didn't know he was on Instagram, and even though he's a good buddy of mine, and I looked at his Instagram account and I followed it. Damn, dude, that guy has the best life. He's doing the coolest, most exciting stuff up there. He's meeting all these cool people. He's drinking at all these cool little bars and eating great food.
Yeah, he got
Jealous.
he's gotten into the Malam scene, and again, we have talked about this before. I have no problem with traditional Thai music, Malam, but I just haven't fallen in love with it, and I feel like he has a little bit of an obsession with it, and like really enjoys it. Like, I don't know. I mean, I think we talked about it before, because you're not in love with it either.
No, it hasn't grabbed me. I love how unique
Yeah.
it is, and I think it's cool to hear in the background in places because you're like, all right, I'm still in Asia, but it hasn't grabbed me.
That's right. Well, maybe we just need to drink a little bit more. We need to go up to Udon, drink a little bit more, and then maybe it'll grab us.
I'm making a pledge, man. You and me do a Bangkok podcast road trip via airplane, and we'll head up there and we'll see some friends. We'll see Ash. We'll see them. I got a buddy Gareth who also lives up in that area.
Oh, excellent.
We'll do it, man. Yeah, we'll do it. But anyway, it was really interesting hearing Phil's take on that because I've never been to Udon, and we got to go. So yeah, thanks a lot.
We gotta
Thanks
go,
a lot, Phil.
no
and
doubt.
Good job at chatting to him.
Thank you, Phil.
All right, let's get into some love, loathe, or live with, where one of us picks a particular aspect of living in Bangkok, which we discuss to decide if it's something we love about living here, loathe about living here, or have come to accept as something that we just have to learn to live with no matter how we feel about it. And this week, Ed, I got something for you.
All right, man.
Now,
Let me hear it.
you don't drive in Bangkok a lot, so you might not know what triggered this for me, but I think you've probably been exposed to the same phenomena. Whenever I go to fill up my car, as I did this morning with gas, most of the time, the gas station gives you something for free. Bag of wet wipes, bottle of water, a little trinket or something like that. But you also get these little giveaways in drugstores. The pretties are standing outside of places,
Sure.
always handing you free shampoos or free laundry detergent or whatever, some free snacks. How do you take this? Do you sort of like say, all
Loathe.
right. Okay,
Loathe.
okay.
I'm cutting you off. I'm just cutting you off. Loathe. I really hate all that small stuff that you get handed. And I don't want to be a jerk. I don't want to, sometimes I'm putting my hand up, but they're just trying to do their job. But like essentially almost anything that a stranger tries to hand me, sometimes it's just charity information, or it's, often it's some retail promotion, but sometimes it's a gift. Like you said, they're giving, it's a gift.
Yeah.
And the truth is, it's almost never something I really want, or it's always, I throw it in my shoulder bag because I'm trying to be nice, and I'll throw it in my shoulder bag. And then 3 months later, I'm like, what in God's name? And it's, it's like some melted candy that someone handed me, part of some retail promotion.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know what the word is. I don't consider myself unfriendly or antisocial, but I'm a don't hand me stuff guy.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page as I guess I'm a light loathe because again, they're just doing their job. I get it, but and sometimes it is useful. Like those wet wipes, as we talked about last week's bonus show, where our friend Prop Pandit handed me a big bag of wet wipes.
So funny.
Those come in handy, and I do enjoy them. But after a while, it's like, you know what? If I want something, I will find it. I don't need you to give me random stuff that is not targeted at me because you just hand it out to every physical being that walks by you. So I'm a light loathe too. I don't want it.
I'm a loathe. It to me, it's just kind of like you said. It's kind of socially awkward in that they're handing you something which is suggestive of a gift, which is kind of rude to reject a gift, but then it's just crap. It's like I never said I wanted it.
Yeah. And you're not giving me because I've shown it interest. You're giving it to me because I'm a mammal in the vicinity of where your arm extends to, and that's pretty much the only qualifications you have to meet.
That's right. I often just kind of act like I'm really busy. Even though I might not be doing anything, I just act like, I can't even take a second, to get that from you.
So busy. I just scream and run away, and I think that really gets the message across.
Yeah. All right. Looks like we got a dual loathe
Double
there.
loathe.
Okay. A final thanks to our patrons who support the show. Patrons get a ton of cool perks and the warm, fuzzy feeling knowing that they're helping in our never-ending quest for cool content. Find out more by clicking support on our website and connect with us online. We're Bangkok Podcast on social media, bangkokpodcast.com on the web, or simply bangkokpodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from our listeners and always reply to our messages.
Yeah, baby. You can also listen to each episode on YouTube. Send us a voicemail through our website that we'll feature on the show. Find me on Threads at BKK Greg. Thanks for listening, everyone. Take it easy out there. Stay warm in the coming winter. I will see you back here next week.
No doubt.